So now that I know that the little LED power supplies are basically doing their job correctly, I'm going to rip the one out of this tech box and put it in there, the second one. And this is the one that only did 21 watts. It's supposed to do 50 watts. And it's not very bright at all. So I am going to re-power supply this one and see what we get. And if it does the same thing and if they burn out quickly, I'm not going to cry too much about it. I'll get some better LEDs to put in them. Tech box 50 watt in quotes LED, and we compared to the other one that we just redone. It's nowhere near as bright. It's pretty damn dim. The VA is 34, but the wattage is only 21. So it's really a bad ballast. It's not doing its job, definitely for a 50 watter. Alright, so here's my 21 watt, 50 watt LED. And what do you think is going to be under this cover? I've gotten the screws removed, I took the front off, and I got this cover loose. What will we find? Will it be a 1.5 amp LED power supply like it should be? Or will it be something that would never have a chance of making 50 watts? Much to my surprise, this unit is rated for 50 watts. It's rated for 1.5 amps out from 32 to 27 volts. So I do not know why it is not performing better. But if you compare it to the one I bought, it sure is a lot smaller. And the one I just bought is much bigger. But they got basically the same ratings. So I don't know, do I blame the manufacturer for not testing his own product enough? Yes, I do. Well, I noticed another really big quality problem with this product. I don't know if you saw the previous one when I took it apart, you notice there was heatsink compound underneath the LED. I see no heatsink compound at all. Solder jobs look really crappy. And actually to solder these nicely, you really need to take it off the heatsink. Why my solder jobs didn't look perfect on the other one. But look at this, they didn't even tighten this to the freaking heatsink. It's just loose to the heatsink. Not only did they not put any goop underneath it, heatsink transfer paste, they didn't even tighten it down to the freaking heatsink. So if I had put this thing into use, it would have not lasted long at all. So this is really a shoddy product in so many ways. Although I have to admit, I'm kind of surprised they did have the right inverter in there. LED power supply. Another detail that's not the greatest is the way this inverter was put in. LED power supply was put in. It was just stuck. Not flush to the bottom, but just kind of stuck in the air with just one little blob of RTV. Not flush against the metal, but just kind of a little bit up from the metal and a little bit at an angle up from the metal. So this wasn't able to get rid of its heat in any way except for getting the ambient air inside this chamber warm and then spreading it to the housing. When I redo this with the new one, I will be doing what I did with the other one. I'll get some epoxy and I'll epoxy it right here, the new module. And that way, and I'll use the metal side to epoxy it too, not the rubber side. So if I put like one of these sides and epoxy it right to here, it'll be able to get rid of its heat a lot more effectively. This is still the old ballast. The new ballast I got temporarily stuck on the front here and ready for testing. I figure I'll test it before I go any further. Not that it's that much harder to do it the other way, but before I epoxy it in at least, I want to test it. But before I even test it, I gotta fix their little crap. This isn't even tight against that LED's got no chance of surviving. The way they built this. This would have been a failure in no time. So it wasn't really the assembler that left this loose. These screws were in so tight that I actually stripped the head on the one. So this is just bad engineering, I guess you'd have to call it. These screws are in very tight, but I could not get them out, and the thing is still wobbly, even with those screws as tight as they were. I guess there is some grease behind there, now that I'm wobbling a little bit. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to put some washers on those screws and tighten them back down or something. I'll figure out something. And after a short run, it is literally too hot to hold my finger on this thing. So I don't think this is going to last too long. The original screws were these little countersunk guys. And you got two flat surfaces, a flat back panel to a flat surface. And you mount them with countersinks that it's just not going to hold. Plus the holes weren't really deep enough for those screws. Not tapped deep enough. So I had to find some screws and grind them real short and put 4 screws in. One of them's kind of a stripped hole. They had the original 2 in there so tight that I stripped the head and had to go through extreme efforts to remove the screw. So it's not for the lack of the worker, trying to do a good job. Just no way it was ever going to squeeze the goo out. It was never going to get tight. Just wrong screw for the wrong job. So here they are, 2 repaired spotlights. I put the same LED power supply into both of these because one of them had a fried LED power supply. Let me just call them inverters. And then the other one was only pulling 21 watts and was very dim. Even though its inverter has the exact same ratings as the inverters I put in here. So I got one fixture pulling almost 70 watts, one pulling like 61 watts, I think. And they're probably both going to fry. But at this point, I'm just going to run them until they do. Hope the inverters survive and put some better LEDs in them. If they do fry, I'll put some Crees in. Get help from John Audio Tech and selecting a couple Crees. A little bit different tint. The one on the right's kind of got a little bit of an aqua. The one on the left is kind of a purple tint to it. They're both roughly fairly about the same brightness. I think the one on the left is a little brighter. So let's say that the element was drawing exactly 50 watts. It was working as it was rated. The little inverter or LED power supply it's going to have some inefficiencies of its own. Now, John was telling me that these things ought to be like 95% efficient. I think it's maybe optimistic. It should at least be 85% efficient, though. Much below that, and it'd be hard to keep them working because they'd be overheating and burning up and stuff, as poorly as they're thermally set up in most of these, as I've demonstrated. So I wanted to do some rough calculations and let me know if you think I'm wrong here. But 85%, 50 watt draw, to me that looks like 58.8 watts. So it still doesn't explain my 61 watts, much less my 70 plus watts on the other one. So I'm definitely over, drawing more than I should be. It's going to be real interesting to see if these things hold up.